again to the Snowboard Show. We're back again here in our little studio. I'd like to introduce again tonight our host, Bob Klein. How's it going?
Good to see you. Good to see you.
You too.
Long time.
I know, right?
Oh man, it's tough business out there.
I know. We're doing it all over again.
Well, so welcome to the Snowboard Show. This is our third episode, so we think we improved on episodes 1 to 2, and hopefully we'll improve even more. We can only get better. That's our motto over here. Tonight, I'm really psyched because I have a couple of excellent guests. One very special guest, cutting edge and groundbreaking rider, Erin Comstock. We also have an old friend of mine who is a Sessions shop employee and historian and a longtime industry veteran. His name is Tim Greene. We'll also have another average snowboarder segment. And in addition to all of that, we're going to discuss some of the ski resort conglomerates. We also will do our jokes once again. Our in-house comedy writer, Cesar Ostrovsky, has been hard at work banging out the jokes. So we'll be right back with the jokes. All right, here's the jokes from Cesar this week. I haven't really had much time to practice them, so the delivery might be a little bit off. Hope that's okay, Corey.
I'll deal.
All right. Russia finally invaded Ukraine, and people are pissed and taking notice. There were Russian soldiers who were super confused early in the invasion, saying they didn't know who was the enemy as they looked like them. The Kremlin blasted them for this and advised they go after anyone not in an Adidas tracksuit. Many countries have delivered sanctions against the Russians and offered military supplies to fend off the aggressors. Poland offered the Ukrainians some of their tanks, but said that they would have to push them on their own. Don't forget, Caesar's Polish, so he can make a Polish joke. The shock felt worldwide, and the way people of all backgrounds banded together in support of Ukraine has been truly something amazing, of which the likes hadn't been seen since 1991, when we all rallied behind Magic Johnson and rooted for his T-cells when they were first invaded. Magic seems like he's still doing pretty well.
I'd say so.
Papa John's has suspended all business in Russia due to the invasion of Ukraine in what may be the greatest effort to assist the Russians yet. Doesn't Vladdy know that the invasions are only cool when you poach and ride Mad River Glen, Alta, and Deer Valley on a split board? All right, we're getting into the snowboard stuff, I guess. Oh, wait. I guess not. Now we're getting into politics here. The annual Republican bacchanal that is the CPAC concluded last week. In a straw poll conducted when it was over, showed that attendees still showed that former president of the USA and current president of the Vladimir Putin fan club emerged as the early favorite. Yeah, no shit. Some may be surprised by this, but if you think about it, it makes total sense, as what else are those red hats going to do with all the Trump MAGA merch and xenophobia they compiled? Sorry to all you MAGA people out there, if there are any left. Can't keep it hidden in the closet like some of their senators. Lindsey Graham. All right, now we're getting into some real snowboard stuff. Sunday, March 13th, which happens to be my mom's birthday, and I've got some of her artwork here on the set tonight. Anyway, Sunday, March 13th is the 3rd annual Ride for Jake Day. Celebrated all around the globe, riders all around the world go out and make some turns in honor for the late Burton Snowboards founder and industry legend. Due to the insane cost of lift tickets, crazy long lift lines at the resorts, and steadily increasing cost of gas, I'll be celebrating by riding my bike around the neighborhood. I am a bike rider, so that wouldn't be out of the norm. Pro skater and X Games medals hoarder Tony Hawk has 16 overall medals, 10 of which are gold, and he added some new hardware to his extensive collection when he broke his femur skating. In a tweet, Hawk stated, "I've said many times that I won't stop skating until I'm physically unable, and I'll be back." In response to his statement, the force of nature known as gravity tweeted, "Bring it, bitch." And that's the jokes for episode number 3.
And we are back. So, Corey, rather than have like an extensive news section, I figured we could just pick a couple of topics throughout the show. I thought of something that's kind of interesting. I hear a lot of people complaining, particularly about Epic Pass and the Vail Resort system.
Sure are.
And Icon as well, too. If you go to those resorts, some of those resorts, people are complaining that they're overcrowded and that they haven't staffed well enough, and lifts aren't running, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I happen to have both. I don't know if you can see those passes, but I have, excellent pictures on these passes.
As you should.
As I should, yes. But, personally, I don't really see the big issue. What about you? Which passes do you have?
I just have an Icon this season, but I've had the Epic for a long time. I lived in Breck for a decade, so did that for a long time. It's been that way for years, I feel like because it was an Olympic year, a lot more people are interested in skiing lately. So maybe you're seeing bigger crowds due to that. But, I grew up on the East Coast too. Going to Okemo and Stratton and everything, the lift lines are way worse out there when I was growing up. So I don't know. I personally, I don't see it because right now I usually just ride during the week. So.
Right. And so did you get the full Icon pass?
No, I got the base.
The base.
So
you're spending about $600-700 for your pass?
Yeah.
And that gets you on how many resorts?
Pretty much everything except I think Aspen and Jackson Hole I would have to pay extra for.
Okay.
Yeah.
But all the ones around the world, like you can go to...
I believe you can actually go to Zermatt and a bunch over in Europe on the base. Yeah, I might be wrong on that, but I live in Colorado, so I basically just ride Winter Park, Steamboat, and Copper anyways.
Yeah.
Or backcountry, so...
Well, and I bought both because I have done well enough in real estate that I can do that. But my feeling is that it's a great deal. I mean, I have spent a total of whatever it is, $1,800 because I have the full Epic and the full Icon pass. And this is 2022. And literally 40 years ago in 1982, if I remember correctly, Squaw Valley, which is now known as Palisades at Tahoe, and I don't care about the name change. All you people can complain about that on some other show. But anyway, Squaw Valley in 1982 was around $1,000 for a full season's pass.
Yep.
And that was one resort. So for not much more, for $1,722, I can go to 30 Vail resorts. I can go to 20 or whatever it is Icon resorts, and I don't see the problem. I remember the 70s when I was growing up in Los Angeles and my family would go to Mammoth, and we would spend 30 to 1 hour in a lift line for a fixed grip double chair. So I'm not sure what everyone's complaining about.
I think, there was one out in Washington, I believe, Stevens Pass. Stevens Pass was the one that I had heard had the big issue where people were getting turned away from the parking lot. You did see it at A Basin when they still had...
When it was on the Epic.
Yeah, when it was on the Epic. I mean, you try to go up there during the spring and you couldn't even get into the parking lot. Now, granted, if you had gone, 10 times or no, what's an A Basin pass right now per day? Probably like 110 or something, maybe?
Probably 100. Let's just call it 100.
We'll call it an even 100. So you go, 6, 7 times, you got your money's worth out of it. But I think the big issue for people is, the people who use it a lot and everything just being that crowded, not even being able to get into the resort in the first place. I do see that as a big issue.
Well, I would like to get another opinion. So I think we should bring Dan on the set. He hasn't been on the set yet. And this guy is the building owner, Affinity Snowboards owner. And he's, doing all the work behind the scenes. So I think it's time to bring him out in front of the camera. What do you think, Dan? Dan?
Hey, Bob. How you doing?
Corey?
Hey, buddy. Long time no see.
So, Dan, what is your feeling about the passes? Do you have one or the other or both?
I got some good opinions. I have the Icon, and I have actually used it a little bit this season. I've been up to Steamboat. I go to Eldora quite often. So having the different resorts available is very valuable to me. One thing that you brought up, though, I was watching you guys before you brought me on, is what the price of the passes used to be. And when I moved to Colorado, I got a Breckenridge pass, and it was literally just Breckenridge. I couldn't go I could get discounted tickets to Keystone. I think I could get discounts to Vail. It was $1,200.
What?
And I moved out here from Minnesota, and in northern Minnesota, where I grew up at Spirit Mountain, season pass was $150. That was a pretty big shock when I had to pay $1,200 for a season pass just to go to Breckenridge. So I'm into having all these extra resorts.
Well, and I think I might be wrong, but I believe most of the complaints are from people who are going up on weekends and they're showing up after 9 o'clock in the morning, and they may have trouble with parking, or they're paying an exorbitant amount for parking, and they don't like the lines, and they maybe get turned away.
That's a weekend thing, and it always has been, though.
It's been like that in Colorado forever.
Yeah,
it's been that way in California, and I don't. It's hard for me to relate to it because I grew up in a ski town. And I skied when I was a kid. I started snowboarding early on, and I never had that problem because only fools go on weekends.
Yeah, no offense to the people who have to ski on the weekends. Obviously, you work during the week, and if you got a family, skiing during the week is probably prohibitive. But the more people that move to Colorado, we haven't expanded and gotten more resorts, so. Over the last 20 years, all these people that have moved here that are in that same position where they have to ride on the weekends, that's going to congest things. You got to deal with that. If you're going to live here to ski or snowboard, you have to deal with that. That's part of the deal.
Well, and I think that goes into planning your move. If you're going to move to a mountain community or even a state like Colorado and live in the city and say, I'll become a skier in the mountains, that's fantastic. But maybe you ought to know that you need to get up early in the morning, or maybe you ought to know that you need to tailor your work so that you can go on a weekday. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but it's really hard for me to relate to all these people complaining about Epic and Icon Pass, whatever, the big corporation. I remember Squaw Valley did all kinds of stuff to the environment, to employees, and on and on and on, that people always complained about the ski resort in the town. And I think that's just something that goes with the territory, I guess. I'm not really sure why people complain, but I love being on the mountain. I get such a thrill just going out and cruising around. I had a great day doing the Average Snowboarder for another episode just yesterday, and I feel like it's always a good day on the hill. And I never wait for more than, I don't know, me and Fukuchi. Hey, Chris Fukuchi again. We waited for 10 minutes, was the longest we waited on a powder day at Vail. So I'm not sure what the big complaint is.
I think a lot of it, too, comes from early season as well. You'll run into it early season at A-Basin or any of the mountains as they're opening, but as the season progresses, I don't feel like it's that bad. And honestly, since I've been back from Europe, I haven't really had to stand in a lift line, but then I kind of avoid weekends. So there it is.
Any parting words, Dan?
Well, one last thing. I mean, I mentioned I was up at Steamboat last month. Anybody who's been to Steamboat knows that, the gondola is the main way to get up the hill. And once you get to the middle of the hill, there's 7 chairlifts you can choose from up there. So if you just kind of stick through the 15 minutes at the main lift, if you will, once you get up top, you have a choice of so many lifts. There's hardly any people. I think people just need to be a little bit more patient. Everybody wants to live in Colorado, so we're going to have to enjoy their company while we're out snowboarding.
Well, they want to live in Tahoe too, and they want to live in Utah and all these places
Jackson.
Jackson, where all these passes are good. But I was in Jackson a couple of years ago. I was out in Tahoe, and I'm going again, and I just don't see the big issue. It's always been the same. And again, 1972 Mammoth was a nightmare. Literally a nightmare. You would wait for an hour for a chairlift, and it was super slow, and you just did not get the runs that you get in these days. And I have no complaints. The grooming is good. The parks are great. If I could hit kickers and rails and stuff, I'd probably be hitting that stuff. And I just think that it's awesome. If you want to go out on the mountains, you can. Just be patient and go early.
Agreed.
All right. Next segment, we're coming up with our first guest, Tim Greene.
All right, so before I bring out my first guest tonight, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Wally's Pepper Sauce from the legendary skateboarder Tom Wally Inue's Pool Service. We cooked some chicken with it last week, and man, this stuff is great. Thanks again, Wally, Tom, Wally, Tom, Wally. So, for my first guest, I've got a guy that I've known since he was a teenager, and he used to come to my shop sessions here in Denver, and he actually ended up working for me for a little while, and he was just a great kid, and he's still a great guy. His name is Tim Greene. He's a longtime rider, a vintage snowboard collector, a moto enthusiast. He's got the injuries to prove it, and most importantly, he's a longtime friend that is an industry veteran, and he still helps people in the retail world. So please give a warm Snowboard Show welcome to Tim Greene.
Thank you, Bob. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Tim. Thanks for coming.
Sticker up your desk.
Oh,
here
what
a
do we
little
got?
bit. Got a little wooden robot sticker for you.
Oh, excellent.
All right. Beautiful audience you have today.
Yeah, there's a big crowd.
Big crowd today, yeah.
We'll hear the applause
Yeah.
and cheering in the editing section.
I'm assuming they're all here for me, so
Yeah,
that's
for
great.
sure. So what are you up to these days? Are you still a snowboarder?
Still an avid snowboarder. Recovering from a little injury, but been out in the snow a little bit this year. This marks year 36, I think, for me of snowboarding.
All right.
Been in it for a little while.
That's pretty stellar and pretty impressive, I would say. 36 years, that's a little behind me. I have a few more years than you, but you probably have more days, because in the last, 5-10 years, I haven't really ridden 100 days a year. And I know you ride every month of the year. Wasn't that one of your goals?
I was at month 35 and I tore my Achilles tendon. Put me back a little bit, so I will be back on that train and trying to go one day a month. Trying to hit 100 months is the end goal.
That's great. So tell me about your childhood and your the way you got into snowboarding and skateboarding, I guess, as well.
Yeah, so Grew up skiing. Grew up here in Colorado and grew up skiing and was a pretty accomplished skier at a young age. And when I was getting better, I just wasn't skiing the way skiing was portrayed back then. Back then it was a very disciplined sport, a rhythmic down the fall line style of skiing, and I wanted to play with the terrain. I was snowboarding, I just didn't know what snowboarding was. So I'd ride and I'd go off a little roll and I'd come through the trees and my dad would scream, you know, down the fall line, and I just wasn't skiing that way. And
everybody needs a militant father as a ski instructor.
yeah,
right?
absolutely, absolutely. So it was March 30th, 1986, and it was the World Championship of Snowboarding going on at Breckenridge, Peak 8. My mom rented me a snowboard that day. I was able to do it, but the kid I was with couldn't. He convinced me to get back on skis. We were over on Peak 9. We skied over to Peak 8, and I saw it. Yourself, Chuck Barfoot.
This is my pride and joy. I mean, my glory. This
Yeah,
is it. I mean,
that's it.
That's the pinnacle of my washed up career.
So got to see, I didn't see Tom Sims and Jake and Chuck there. They rode. You know, I think Tom won the World Championship of Snowboarding that day. And I saw Kidwell and I saw Palmer and yourself and, you know, the legends and legends of sports. And I saw it and that was it. That was what I was put on earth to do, was to snowboard. And since then, it's consumed my life. I've really dedicated my life to snowboard as much as I can and enjoy it as absolutely much as I can. And now I'm collecting vintage boards to preserve that history and make sure that the new generation coming up realize where we were and what we had and how we were able to turn it into the sport that it is today.
And how do you do that? Do you just talk to people on the street?
Yeah, stop people randomly on the street and talk snowboards. No, actually, I work at a shop here in town called Evo, and I'm lucky enough to work with young, incredibly talented riders and show them, you know, old magazines and old snowboards and talk with them. I've done a couple clinics for the team, explain the history of the sport and just share it, especially with customers that come in that some guys have been riding as long as us and you know, are now getting their kids into the sport, and just show people where the sport was and where we're going.
I think that's really impressive that you have the energy to pass it along. A lot of people my age and your age are in their own world and they live in the past, but they don't seem as excited about what's going on today. You seem like you're really excited about what's happening currently with all the products. I mean, I know because I bought my splitboard bindings from you, and you knew everything I needed to know. And I made my own splitboard a few years ago and kind of figured it all out, but I didn't know anything. And you just blew my mind away with the information, and you set me up really well and really quickly. So I guess that is a source of energy for you too, just helping people.
Absolutely. Getting people turned on to this sport, to me, is huge. There's a very small group of people that are actual snowboarders. Most people just snowboard recreationally and ride and 5 days a year, and that's great. You know, it really helps us be who we are. I have the job I have because of those people, so I really appreciate those people. But I want them to know that there's more to snowboarding than just standing up and sliding down on a sled, and that's really what snowboarding is. And let's look at, there's a culture there and there's a lifestyle there, and so I like to share that with people, and it's a driving force for me. I've had some pretty miserable jobs in my life, and now I have one of the coolest jobs of my life, and I'm not going to squander this opportunity. You know, we're not promised tomorrow, so let's live today and let's share with others, and let's be positive about this fun sport that we're all involved with.
So let's move back a little bit, and when you first snowboarded in 1986, and then Sessions came along, because I opened up the shop that fall of 86. Did you come to Sessions right away?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, it was that, for me, that was huge. Having a legend in my eyes selling me stickers and skateboards and grip tape and all the crap that I needed to skate, and I was lucky enough to be able to see what you had to offer and that culture and that lifestyle that drew me in. You know, the skate demos with, I think I saw Cab and Lance Mountain skate there one time. I mean, that was amazing to me as a kid. And I remember being there one day, and this is a funny story. I walked in, and Terry Kidwell's there with his dog, and his dog bit me. And then the next contest, we're riding up the chairlift with Terry Kidwell. He's like, "Hey man, I'm sorry about my dog biting you." I mean, to me that was like flattering. Like one of the greatest snowboarders that ever walked the planet's dog bit me. I mean, that's my 5 minutes of fame right there.
And you still have the rabies to prove
Oh yeah,
it.
I still have rabies. I got the dog bite. I had it tattooed on me and stuff. So like I got to see part of the sport that wouldn't have happened without concessions. So I really owe you a huge thanks for letting me be able to see the sport in a greater realm, not just what's going on in Aurora, Colorado, but what's going on outside of that. And at the time, the videos were few and far between. The snowboard magazines were few and far between. So we didn't have what we have now of seeing kids every day ride. You got the video at the end of the season or the beginning of the next season, and those are the tricks you learned. But the pros already had those tricks under the belt. But those are the tricks we had to learn because we got to keep up with the Joneses there. So it was great for us to have that. I know there's a lot of us, a small group of us from Parker, Colorado that still hold you in high regard and think that Sessions is a blessing for us.
Well, that's to just making my head swell. It's very flattering, and I really appreciate the compliments. It's really nice of you. But you also worked in the industry a bit and then moved into retail. Didn't you work for some companies and whatnot?
I did, yeah. So just like everybody in the late 80s, I did the contest scene and did the little local contests and did pretty poorly. Pretty not a great competitive snowboarder, and but had a lot of fun doing it, and the rawness of what was going on back then was really, really cool to me. So really enjoyed that. And then freshman year of college, I got kicked out of school with, I think my grade point average started with a 0, and a friend of mine called me, a good friend Aaron Freya called me and said, "Hey, want to go snowboarding?" And we jumped in a U-Haul with a duffel bag, our snowboard gear, and a sleeping bag, and this man named Rick Alden put together a little snowboard jam, the National Snowboard Incorporated Good and Fruity Snowboard Jam, and we traveled the country being good and fruity, and we demoed snowboards, and that for me was the next level, because now I'm on the tour with the pros, and I'm going to parties with the pros and rubbing elbows with. I remember meeting Damian Sanders' wife, and I remember Palmer grabbing.
Was that when she was in Penthouse?
Yeah, that was right when she got into Penthouse. I'm 19 years old from Parker, Colorado. I'd never expected to see something like that in my entire life, in real life, and so that was pretty changing of my adulthood, and parties and seeing the Roach brothers and Palmer and the Delaney's, and I mean, just wildness going on, complete lawlessness.
Did you join in? Were you a big partier too?
Not really. I mean, I was 19 years old, and I was really just wide-eyed and kind of petrified of what's going to happen next. So, but yeah, I had a great time doing that tour, and was able to see some of snowboarding in its infancy, and I mean, it was amazing, strapping in at the top of the pipe with Craig Kelly right next to me. I mean, that never will happen again, and it's kind of sad for the younger crew and the younger guys coming up that they're not going to get to do that. They're not going to be strapping in next to Danny Davis. I mean, they're not going to go to a contest and have, Travis Rice sitting next to them and riding the same pipe at the same time as the greats. And so that was amazing to me, and I'll always hold that as a great memory for myself. And I did that for a little while, and realized I didn't want to do that. Actually, it was when I met Chuck Barfoot, a good friend and a great man, and more stoked on snowboarding than anybody I've ever met. And he sat me down one day. I think we ate a bag of peanut M&Ms, watched some cartoons, and smoked a joint. And he really laid it out for me of how, if you're going to be a pro snowboarder, you got to snowboard. And there was times I didn't want to do what I had to do. And so I went back to school, got a degree, and got back into the industry, worked at shops for a long time, worked as a rep for a while, behind the scenes for Lion, Dub. They're not around anymore. Flux is still around. Did them for a little while, and did that for a while, then adulted for a while, which sucked. Stopped adulting 5 years ago and came back to retail.
I don't know what that term is, and I think it's kind of stupid. Adulting. What is it?
I don't know what it is, but I didn't like it.
See, stupid.
Exactly.
So you've stuck with the retail side of things for a long time, and I know it doesn't pay all that well, but you must really get a lot of enjoyment from helping people on the sales floor and getting first looks at all the new products. Is there any new product that you are thinking about that's going to be groundbreaking, or any new technologies or practices that companies are bringing to the table?
I don't know if there's new technology that's over the top or coming out. I think that I think Burton doing their Step On program I think that there's something there. I've ridden it, it works. I think that there's a potential for that to be for more people than are willing to try it. I think that more people could use that than do. It needs to grow a little bit, but I think there's some potential there. For me, right now what I'm seeing in the industry is there's a lot of companies offsetting their carbon footprint, and I think that's great. But at the end of the day, there's a lot more that we could be doing, and I'm lucky enough to work for a company like Evo that really goes above and beyond to try to do what they can environmentally. We recycle all of our soft plastics. Every snowboard that shows up in our shop is wrapped in soft plastic, and that's a petroleum product. It's not biodegradable. It's hard to recycle, and Evo's taken upon themselves to financially back that recycling program. And so there's a lot of waste in the industry on the backside that I think we could work on a little bit stronger. Better packaging, more recycling on that side of it. The company Cardiff Cardiff Snowcraft, Bjorn and Eric Linus, incredible snowboards, huge fan of their product. Sent me a board in a box that they designed. It's 100% recycled material. It can be recycled, and it cuts their shipping costs down. And we could do better in this industry, and we need to do better for this industry. We're having a slow snow season. We have had for the last 3 years. We've had a slow snow season. It's not because we just aren't getting snow. The climate's changing, and we need to do what we can on our side to do the best we can. And I think the industry does good, but we need to do better.
Well, it's really a challenging thing. I mean, I know just from working in various aspects of the industry, making T-shirts, ordering boxes. You can buy boxes from, I don't even know who they are anymore, but Weyerhaeuser used to make boxes, and you could buy custom boxes, but you had to buy a whole lot of them to make them cheap. Mm-hmm. And if you wanted to put a plastic sleeve on the boards to protect them in shipping, then you had to buy it in big quantities. And when you start pricing those things out in the thousands, it makes it really challenging to say, well, I would be paying double for something that's biodegradable or something that's recyclable. So I think that's the easy decision of the old days. And it is really refreshing to see a lot of companies taking that initiative and probably added expense. Although I'm imagining that some of this recycled stuff is a lot cheaper than it used to be too.
I would think so. Mervyn Manufacturing sends all their boards in sleeves that protect the board, and then we ship them back, and they use them for the next round of boards. So reuse. I mean, it doesn't have to go into a landfill. We can reuse it. Never Summer does the same thing with us. It's great. We either get a shipping label and ship it back to the company, or the rep comes in and picks up a bag of boxes or a box of bags, sorry, and they're using them again. And part of that is we need to use stuff again. Recycle like the waxes we use on our boards. I mean, we've been using waxes that are not good for the environment for a very long time. There's a lot of plant-based waxes out there. Our friends at One Ball J, they make a bio wax, and we should all be thinking about that. None of us are world-class snowboarders that have to worry about the perfect tune. We can get away with some stuff that's not as perfect as some of the petroleum products. We can use a plant-based product that's more environmentally friendly and still get the exact same ride that we're getting now.
Well, that's a tough one for me. I mean, I wax all the time. I think it's really important just for my personal feel on the board, and I really get a lot of enjoyment out of the process of waxing too. And I do remember a number of years ago, I think it was Regis Roland who introduced me to some plant-based wax, but it was so long ago, and I tried it one time and I thought it was a joke. It just didn't work. And then I've also spent plenty of time in like serious wax rooms where they're waxing for top-level competitors, and it's toxic. That fluorocarbon stuff is difficult stuff to deal with. So I imagine you've seen an evolution of the plant-based waxes as well. So if you say that there's some good ones out there, I would love to try them.
Absolutely. Like I said, I One Ball J, and I've always loved their product since it came out, and I've tried it. It works, and I'm with you. Waxing a snowboard to me is my zen, and I enjoy that. And so I'm still waxing my board, but I'm using something that I'm not throwing a bunch of plastic into the trash, and that's what the wax is at the end of the day. I'm not throwing a bunch of petroleum products away. I'm throwing something away that will biodegrade. I'm using less, and I'm thinking about that when I'm waxing, and being a little bit more in tune with what am I leaving behind.
Great. So what's an ideal day for you? Is it at a resort? Is it powder day? Is it split boarding? What's your favorite thing to do on a snowboard these days?
Everything. I love riding a snowboard, and sometimes riding with really new riders is some of my funnest days, because you forget the milestones. You forget what it's like to jump for the first time on a snowboard if you've been doing it for a while. So riding with new riders is really enjoyable for me. Riding with new people that have a different energy than me, I enjoy that. I do spend a lot of time in the backcountry. It's where I've evolved to in my snowboarding. I enjoy it. I've got a great backcountry partner, my friend Aaron Freya. We think very similar, and I feel very safe in the backcountry with him, and I really enjoy introducing new people to the backcountry in the safest way possible, and being very conscious of the safety and what needs to be done out there.
Great. Well, anything else you want to add to this segment? Any old stories from the Nodus demo or anything crazy like that?
Right. I think he was doing frontside grinds on the back of somebody's truck, from what I remember.
Yeah, I've got pictures of it.
Yeah, I remember that very vividly. I would like to bring up a purchase I made from you. It was my first real snowboard.
Oh, wow,
It was
cool.
a Greene anti-gravity that I bought from yours truly. And I think the flex on this is a 17 out of 10. I think I weighed maybe 100 pounds of wet clothes and change in my pocket. The binding was absolutely horrific, and I was still in a Sorel. But I did learn to carve on a snowboard on this board, and this changed snowboarding for me. I remember being at Winter Park and learned to carve and using the side cut of the snowboard, and it changed a lot for me at that point.
Were you working at the shop back in those days?
No, I was not at that shop. I wasn't near a shop at the time.
No. Okay. I just was curious because I was riding for GNU at that
Yeah.
time.
Oh yeah. You were a heavy influence on
And-
the purchase for sure.
Yeah, and the bindings were a company called Windline was distributing GNU. They were actually a windsurf distribution company, and they had to send out these rivet guns and rivets, and they called them retro kits so that you could actually do something with the bindings, because I remember just like everything popped off the bindings, and
Oh, yeah.
it was terrible.
They wouldn't stay locked. They had that crazy tongue that broke. The stuff we rode and we thought it was a good idea sometimes blows my mind. But
now it's a great looking collector board.
yeah, I'm lucky to still have this one on my hands. But yeah, really, really cool board for the time. And knowing the story now from Mervyn that this wasn't really Mike Olson's design, but not his construction. And so really crazy stiff, but still it changed snowboarding for me a lot.
And what are you riding now?
So now I'm still in the Mervin world. Trust Mervin Manufacturing, that's for sure. And I have gone to the Retro Ripper and gone back to Swallowtails.
That looks like a camber board.
Oh, full camber.
It doesn't look like it has a serrated edge either.
It does not. Not on the Mayhem. The Lost editions don't do the serrated edges.
Awesome. So it doesn't slow you down.
Doesn't slow me down. I do like that magnet traction. I've got a couple boards with it, but this is very classic riding feel. I was told the other day by a good friend who rides a Swallowtail as well, life's too short to ride fakie, and so I ride a Swallowtail. And it's funny in the lift line on a groomer day when people say, "How do you ride that?" We used to ride in the 80s.
You get up and go.
Yep, you stand up and you turn on it. And riding a Swallowtail switch is hilarious. It catches snow, it throws it in the air, and you get some looks. But yeah, my new direction is very, very directional in shape. There's a lot of companies building some really, really cool shapes right now. I think Mervin does a cool job. I think that there's companies like Karua that's making really cool shapes. Again, big fan of Cardiff Snowcraft, Gentum. There's some really cool companies building some really, really cool boards right now, and outside the box. And it's amazing to me in the retail realm how many people still think they have to ride a twin because they ride backwards. And I ask them how much they ride backwards. They're like, oh, every once in a while I'm in the trees and I got to go backwards to get out of the...
To traverse or something.
If you can't traverse it on it, you can traverse backwards on any board,
Sure.
and more directional. I think people would have a lot more fun on more directional shapes than, but there's a little resistance still. This industry really pushed twins down our throat really, really hard, and I think now getting into these funner shapes, I think people are going to start realizing there's a lot more to snowboarding, and the carve is a lot more fun on some of the more shaped boards.
Well, I'm going to give you a gift in case you don't have it. I've got, right when DVDs were going out, we made a whole bunch of DVDs of this Palmer movie.
Oh my God.
The Miserable Champion. So that's a gift for you from
I
the show.
appreciate that. That is amazing.
I got this at the Mount Baker Bank Slalom a few years back, and it was sponsored by Evo, which is the shop that you work at. So if you need any expert advice for any of the products in snowboarding and a little bit of mountain biking stuff too, right?
Yeah, we do some mountain biking, we do skateboard stuff. What I like about the store, a couple things about that store I really like. We're on the same level for skiing and snowboarding. There isn't the token snowboards in the back and it's a ski shop. It is a ski and snowboard shop. We're equal. And there's days where the numbers for snowboards, we'll sell some more snowboards than we'll sell skis. And the owner treats us that way. And Bryce is an incredible guy, and I'm lucky to work for him. And he treats it as equal. There isn't better or worse. It's just a different way to go down the hill. I'm lucky enough to have some great ski friends from that shop that are ripping skiers. Amazing snowboarders there. So yeah, you want to come in, I'd love to chat with you, but the team there is so good, and I would suggest talking to everybody there.
Yeah, I bought my latest skis there, some great Atomic GS style skis, and my boots I bought there, and the boot fitting department is incredible. I had a great experience. It was packed in there, and they took great care of me, and just every time I go in the shop, it's a good experience for sure. So I'm glad you work there, and I really appreciate you helping me get my split board bindings last year. I just have to go out more and do some split boarding, maybe with you.
Absolutely, I would love to go out with you. And if you need more information about me, Wooden Robots is my Instagram handle, and pretty much every social media on the planet is Wooden Robots. I really don't know what that means, but thought it was a funny name, and so I've stuck with it.
Sounds good.
And yeah, come and see me. I'd love to help anybody out that wants to get into the sport. And if you want to transition from snowboarding to skiing, let me know. I've got some great friends in the ski department that would love to help you out as well.
All right, Tim Greene, everybody. Thanks again.
Thank you all for having me here.
Have a great night. All right. Order segment. I have a really special father and daughter team. And I actually know the father. I've known him for a long time. He was the first Midwest Palmer rep, and his name is Tim Bean. He's a longtime industry veteran. He worked for Battalion Snowboards and who knows who else. He's actually a coach for a high school border cross team, believe it or not. And he and his daughter were just out here in Colorado about a week or so ago. And we've got an average snowboarder segment with the two of them. So please give it up for Hannah and Tim Greene.
All right, Hannah. What's your name? What's your age? And how long have you been snowboarding?
So my name's Hannah. I'm 16, and I've been snowboarding probably for about 4 years now, maybe. I gotta say, within the past 2 years is when I really started getting into it and really enjoying it and whatnot. And coming out here to Colorado is probably where it really stuck and being able to really enjoy it. Yeah.
Very cool. So, would you say that this trip has really made you a lifelong snowboarder?
I would say 100%. You know, I hear my dad and my brother coming out to Colorado all the time, and you really don't fall in love with it until you come out here. It's so surreal and definitely an amazing experience, and something that I think every snowboarder should do. So.
Very cool. I think you need to go to Lake Tahoe because it's even better.
I will definitely try to experience that.
All right. And what are your goals and dreams in life and maybe in snowboarding too? Is it just to go have fun snowboarding?
I gotta say, within the snowboarding life and aspect of that, definitely just travel the world and see what I can get into and try different things and different boards, different styles, and really just overall get a better experience of snowboarding. So.
Has your dad taught you about building boards?
I think a little bit. He's tried. I don't really listen a whole lot. I kind of like to do my own thing when it comes to snowboarding, but he's taught me a lot when it comes to it, and I do take it in, whether he likes to hear it or not and admit it. But
so through your mutual love of snowboarding and this trip, would you say you now have a little bit more respect for your dad?
Oh, I have a ton more respect. Trying to keep up with him on these hills and everything. He knows his stuff, and it's been really cool doing this trip with him. And you know, he loves the sport, so him teaching me the sport and all that stuff, it's been really great, and I respect him and the sport a lot more. So.
And has it brought you closer together as father and daughter?
I gotta say, this trip has brought us way closer, and it was just a great time to bond and do something that we both love, and he can teach me something that he loves. So.
That's great. So that's just another example of snowboarding bringing people together, even if they're family,
Yep.
and creating lifelong memories and a bond that can't be broken.
Yeah, exactly. Snowboarding really is just a great sport.
All right, cool. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, of course.
And as we've said, none of these people are average. They're all way above average. Thanks a lot, Hannah.
Yep,
and
of course.
we'll hopefully see you on the hill soon.
Will do.
So, Tim, how long have we known each other?
Bob, I think it's been since 1994, probably 94. Probably, I think that was the first year that Palmer Snowboards launched, and so I think that's when I called you and reached out, and I was a rep for you, working under you, and probably 93, maybe 93. So yeah, long time, almost over 20 years, 30 years. No, I can't do math.
Okay, well, we don't have to do any math during this interview. So, when did you start snowboarding and how'd you get into it?
So when I started, some of the years when I started snowboarding in 1985. I was actually introduced to snowboarding through the Boy Scouts. I went on a trip up north, and Shady Creek up in Michigan, which is where I live right now, rented snowboards. It was a Burton Elite 140. I actually have a catalog, that exact catalog that, Bob, I believe you are in that catalog. I don't know if that was the year before or after that, but 1984 is when I tried it. 1985 was when I bought my first snowboard.
And what were your initial feelings? Were you a skier?
So I grew up skiing probably at the age of 8 or 9, local hill, Mount Brighton, over in Michigan. And I showed up to Mount Brighton. There was a guy on a snowboard. I went inside of the payphone, told my mom, come pick me up. I'm getting my snowboard, and drove me up to Town and Country. Bought a snowboard, a Performer 140. That was the first board I owned, and went back from there. And never really ever skied full time ever again. So yeah.
Cool. And what are you up to these days as far as snowboarding?
So I don't think there's ever been a year that I haven't snowboarded. I had an injury one year, was still involved in coaching, but I snowboard at least 15 to 20 times a month. I coach a high school snowboard team. I at least make one trip out west every year. I usually go to Copper Mountain or Summit County. That's where I used to live for a short period of time. But yeah, both my kids, I got an 18-year-old son and a 16-year-old daughter. They both snowboard very actively with right now. In fact, I'm on my trip in Colorado here with my 16-year-old daughter and Hannah, and she got to experience Colorado for the first time, but I've never stopped snowboarding. It's always been a part of my life.
And what's the best day for you out on the hill?
Best day, honestly, if I can get some good fresh snow. I'm not really a park guy. If I'm upside down, I'm in trouble. I love racing bordercross, but a good day for me is taking some good powder lines out back to the trees. I love riding through the trees. When it gets really quiet and the snow is deep, and you take that stop and it's just super quiet. Cold, deep, snowy days, those are my favorite days.
And tell me a little bit about your industry experience.
So,
what was that like? Did you make any money, and what drove you out of it?
So my industry experience, and did I make any money? Street cred, I'm loaded. But as far as actually making actual dollars I can take to the bank and pay the mortgage, not really. My first industry job was with a company called Family Snowboards in California. Jeff Falzone was the owner, who's now into off-road truck racing. I went from there to work for a lot of companies in the industry. Palmer Snowboards was my biggest company at the time I'd worked for early on. I worked for Spider when they had their own snowboard line, 686. I've worked for every company. Then my big industry position was I helped bring Battalion Snowboards into the U.S. I was their USA operational manager. They brought the company here. I helped set up their infrastructure, hired their reps, did all that, and then just family and time came in, and it was kind of time to stop, slow down a little bit.
What do you do currently, and is there any kind of promotional website we can?
So currently I work in the self-defense firearms industry. I work for a company called Delta Defense, and they're the service provider for the USCCA. We provide education and training. That's my full-time job, but my passion. I'm still involved in snowboarding. I actually restarted a company called Family Snowboards. You can check out familysnowboards.com. It's a project that I have with a bunch of local kids. I kind of teach them about the industry, how to source products, how to source getting snowboards made domestically and overseas, as well as actually learn how to make tech packs on clothing, beanies, everything in the industry, and kind of help them there. It's not really about money. It's about me giving back to these kids in snowboarding and letting them kind of have a passion for it like I did.
Cool. And with your own kids, do you get aggro when you coach them?
So my son, I can coach him really well. He listens to everything I say. He'll take the advice. He understands. My daughter, not so much. I can tell her sky is blue and she'll say it's red. But we have a really good relationship with my kids. I cherish every moment with it, and I got two really fine young adults that are a part of my life.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the quick interview.
Cool. Thanks, Bob.
Break your back. Let's move, let's shake the room. Bartender pass those tools to act a fool. Ladies shake well, come on, do what you do. True players in a place, go on, grab your two. It goes ooh, cause we be too sweet. Every rhythm and flow that we drop be heat. Y'all don't know, chromatic and level freak. When we spit out lyrics, these crowds they beat us to be too vicious. Underestimate and you will get touched. Get your hands up when you see us bust. Bounce front to back when you feel the rush. Get clutched, our flows they crush. Us two on tracks, it be a must. Dig this like dicks dig guts. Imagine what's hot, close your eyes, see us. Come on, let's move. Come on, break your back. Come on, let's move. Break your back. Come on, let's move. Break your back. Come on, let's move. Come on.
I'm coming down the hill. I have a perfect straight line carving beautifully. And this lady cuts right into my line. I carve up and I go down. And then is the end of the story.
Break your
It's
back.
been a long time coming for these cats to see the next level of ill, the mystical MC sounds dropping. Tones flow through these veins, it's the same song spinning on a cosmic plane. Same theme, makes me wonder but makes me fumble. It takes me under but makes me humble. Gotta move on, it's a throne that I gotta sit upon.
Anna, how do you feel right now?
I'm a little scared.
Why? Because we're high up?
A little bit.
What do you think of snowboarding today so far?
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So this is
Soldiers to assemble for the sky shines dawn. Us to be too dangerous. Metaphors deep, making shallow mind bust. One move to the beat, uninhibited like mind control. Rhythm's got the style just right. For the girls looking for times to find the young lives gone wild in the club at the weed, a little wine. Prime time for the picking ladies, picking, licking, thick in the right spots. Now it's time to guess again.
Let's move. Come on. Come on. Break your back. Come on. Let's move. Let's move. Break your back. Come on. Let's move. Let's move. Let's move. Break your back. Come on. Let's move. Come on. Ha. Break your back.
All right. My next guest is someone who made a huge impact and contribution in her snowboarding career. She was progressing women's riding at a time when the ladies were really beginning to adapt and push the riding levels never seen up to that point. We're talking about street or urban sessions, solid backcountry lines, as well as stomping big jumps and park hits. She had a long career filming as well as competing in some of the biggest events out there. She's happily transitioned into a new career in holistic health. Please welcome the one and only legendary Erin Comstock. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Hi.
So, Erin,
Yes.
welcome to the Snowboard Show.
Thank you.
And first question I have for you is, you're from Tahoe?
I'm from Tahoe and you're from Tahoe, and we just could talk for hours on that.
That just blows me away. So you are from Incline Village.
Yes.
For whatever reason, we don't really know each other, and I guess that must
But
be
you feel like
the
you
reason.
know each other
Yeah, I mean,
once you have Tahoe blood.
that's for sure. But it totally blew me away because I thought you were a Utah native, and then when we talked, you told me you were from Incline Village. And I just have to say, I've got some North Tahoe High School pride here.
Yes.
Incline and North Tahoe back in the day were rivals. So,
They're still rivals, let's be honest.
What was your experience like growing up in Tahoe?
Looking back now, I was like, how lucky as a kid to have such a beautiful place to grow up. But when I was there, I couldn't wait to leave. But having a mountain 5 minutes from your house and a beautiful lake, having all 4 seasons. I grew up playing soccer, and I only played soccer so I could get to the winter season. Being in Incline, it was 5 minutes to Diamond Peak, and then if I had A's and B's, I was allowed to go to Boreal on a school night.
That's a long way from Incline.
It is, and back then when they gave you your weekly report cards, it was like so easy to change and add on an extra line so that C looked like a B. I probably got away with more than I should have, but it was, looking back, it was a cool experience.
So you didn't really necessarily learn your riding chops at Diamond Peak, more at Boreal?
It was both. So I grew up, my boyfriend was Joel Mahaffey, and there was Ben Ashburner and Kai Demolsky. There's that group of kids that between Boreal and Diamond Peak. But those were the only mountains I knew. I wasn't allowed to do the squaw. There was like some hookup on squaw on Sundays, and I didn't ride on Sundays, so I never got in on that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Did you ever go up to Mount Rose?
A little bit, but we always did a jump. We built this jump up at Mount Rose. I can't remember what we called it now. And then there was like the K2 rock. And then, so that's all I really did at Mount Rose. When I got a little older, I rode a little bit, but Mount Rose was kind of whatever.
Yeah, it wasn't really
Wasn't
happening
in the
until
picture.
when they opened up the chutes about 15, 20 years ago. That changed that mountain.
Is that when they combined with Slide Mountain? Like,
No, they combined a long time ago, but they started controlling the avalanche chutes in between
Okay.
Mount Rose and Slide Mountain. And about 15 or 20 years ago, they opened up the chutes and built the chairlift, and it's, in my opinion, one of the best resorts around the lake.
I'm
now.
sure. I bet. It was interesting because we always called North Star Flat Star, and then when when you start snowboarding as a career, they choose mountains that you're like, are you kidding me? But it's North Star. I became well acquainted with like all the contests that went through there.
They did a great job building parks
They did.
at North Star. I always made fun of it too. I thought it was flat. It actually reminds me of Colorado resorts.
Well, it's interesting because, Boreal was the thing for me back then, but it never really was a thing in snow when I became professional. It was
Yeah.
just obsolete. Like, this thing that I grew up in, it just had these little contests. I remember Jana Mayan was doing these comps there, and Autumn Rose, and like Boreal was legit. But then
Yeah.
you become like in this snowboard industry, and what's Boreal? I know now they have Woodward,
Yep,
right?
yep.
But the Woodward wasn't there when I was there, so it was interesting that it was North Star or Heavenly with
So
the like
what-
snowboard stuff.
What brought you to Utah?
University of Utah. I went and played soccer in I'll say San Jose is De Anza College. I played 2 years of soccer and then transferred over to University of Utah. And I was like, the mountains are 25 minutes away. This is crazy. Like, this is so far. But I made it work. I ended up just making morning classes and then going up there every day after my classes.
Where did you ride?
Brighton.
I'm going there tomorrow.
I would still ride Brighton. Brighton is, from when I went there, let's see, that was 98 to today. I would say it's probably the most fun, best mountain. And isn't it still owned by, why can't I think of his name?
I don't
It's
know.
still owned by the same owner. They didn't go corporate from when I remember. I don't think they're corporate. I don't know. Don't quote me on that.
I don't know if they're corporate. I know my Icon Pass works there.
I can't believe I don't remember his name because I used to ask for permission to do sledding on their hill. Oh, geez. Anyway, I love Brighton.
You will remember the name, I'm sure. But
I'll walk out and be like, oh, that's his name.
Exactly. So how did you get sponsored, and was it just part of that Salt Lake scene, and what shops did you go to? Did you go to Milo?
No, I went on a mission for the Mormon Church, and when I came back, one of my really good friends pre-mission, his name is Brian Craighill, had started working at Quicksilver. And I was like, hey, can I get a discount? And he's like, I'm gonna send you some clothes and I want you to meet me at June Mountain. Nope, that's wrong. What's more south? Bear Mountain. So I was like, okay, I'll drive down there. And I drove down there. He gave me like 6 outfits and we just rode together. And he said, okay, I want you to now meet me in Mammoth. But there wasn't much of like, I was just like, okay, I love snowboarding so much. I wasn't like picking up on what was happening. And then I went to Mammoth, and one of my good friends who owned Blindside, Tom Lee, in Salt Lake City was like, do you know you have an ad in Transworld? And I was like, what? Are you joking? I was like so excited. And, but I also asked Brian, I'm like, wait, I have an ad for Roxy. Like, was I gonna know about this? I don't think anything like this would happen probably now, but it was just more, just this like snowball that started going that I wasn't aware of quite. Like, I don't know, because things were happening without, hey, we're gonna do this, you wanna sign a contract, or hey, let's sign a disclosure statement or something. So it wasn't something, I actually came off my mission and I was like, snowboarding, whatever, I'm just gonna like finish school. And then I did my first, Canyons was in it for a hot minute, they were really good. And I went to canyons. I remember my first run, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm coming back tomorrow, and again and again. And I just like, it was that craving. I wanted it. And so Brian hooked me up with an outfit, and I was like, I don't want to wear pink or fluffy. And I remember it was Tina Beerbaum and Jessica Dalpiez. I met Amber that shoot. It's funny who I met on that first shoot. And Tora, but Tora was only Australia, and she was still in Burton. And there was a girl that was a pretty big skater at the time. I don't remember now who that was. Anyway.
Was it Cara Beth Burnside?
No, I would have remembered that. No, Lions? Something Lions? Do you know?
Maybe.
Anyway. But yeah, it just ended up with that ad, and I was like, well, should we negotiate something? $600 a month? And I was like, cool, let's do this. But I did also tell him, I was so excited. I'm like, Mom, and she's like, okay, you need to go get your master's. I was like, okay, well, I told Roxy, I'm like, I'm gonna finish, I have like 1 semester left. So I got my bachelor's in communication, which doesn't mean anything. But I made sure I graduated, and then I just kind of went into it more, and I went to Mount Hood that summer, and Vans was like, you want to ride for us? And it just kind of did this, which was cool, because it was just like, no, I'm going to go back and get my master's. My mom told me to, and then something else would happen. And I remember my first 9 months of being whatever in the industry at $600, whatever that means.
That's pro. You're getting paid. That means
but I
you're
got
pro.
a cover of Trans World, and I was like, what in the heck? So it was in that moment where I'm like, you're right, Mom, I'm going to go back to school. And I'm like, wait a second. I got a cover of Trans World. Maybe there's something there. And then it picked up from there. I had Sims for a hot second, and then they went under.
You went from Roxy to Sims?
Roxy was just clothing.
Oh, right, in the beginning.
It was just clothing. I was Roxy, Smith, Vans, Sims.
But you didn't have a board sponsor?
Sims for a hot second.
That was your first board sponsor.
Yes, and then at some point there was a signing with Mervyn. I don't really know what year that was. Maybe 05 or something? 04? Do you guys know?
I was thinking 04.
04?
Well, things happen so fast.
It does happen.
When you're a pro, and I think for you, it sounds to me like things happen really fast. There's some conflicting kind of things too, where you talked about being a Mormon and going on a mission. How was it for you to just step into this scene? Because in those days, there were still a lot of partiers going on and a lot of mayhem.
I grew up in Incline. So, I mean, it wasn't like, shocker. I grew up in Incline.
So you were never conflicted by the 2 different worlds that you were living?
No. Growing up in Incline and your friends coming to school with the friends you're friends with, having twosomes and getting pregnant, and they're all your friends from all, it's like the smallest circle. Like, how can that be any different than traveling and people? I don't know.
That's great. So you had a pretty open mind, it sounds like.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And then
for sure.
Also, I just the rapid progression of your career, I would say, was due to you and your quality of riding. I mean, in those days, I think, and still today, it's a little bit bothersome to me that there's just the sexploitation of a pretty woman, and let's use her for advertising and put her in these clothes or whatever. But you were way more than that. You were a cutting edge rider and doing tricks that nobody else was doing and hitting big jumps. I mean, we've got lots of pictures of you that prove it. And I think that's probably why your career just progressed so fast. What would you say?
Yeah, so I was a tomboy. Up until I went to college, I was wearing Joel's clothes, and he was sponsored by Volcom. And I just had a very tomboyish aspect. So, of course, when I started riding with Roxy, I'm like, I want size 11, I need my stuff baggy. And I was actually surprised they stuck with me, because as we grew forward, or like as Roxy got, I guess, more popular within, I mean, at one point we had Desiree Mellison like asking to ride for Roxy's, which it became a product that wasn't super, well, my whole reason, I don't want to wear fluffy and pink and girly. It actually broke into the scene as like, there's good riders and you can ride for this. But they stuck with me through my weird stage of like, do I put makeup on? Because there came a point where I asked why they didn't sign some girls, and they said because they don't fit the image. And it really bothered me. I'm like, when you're 14, I'm sorry, but they're still going through puberty. Like, I don't know. There's some things that still bother me about it. But yeah, they kept me on, and it was, I got on at the right time. And I actually thought I missed it because everyone's like, yeah, the right time was 5 years ago. But I really thought with Roxy, I got on at the right time. Amber came through and produced As If, which was a female video that she wanted people to actually see and watch. Didn't want to name it like Snow Bunnies or anything weird. So that was a really good, I would say, a pinnacle moment for women snowboarding. And then from there, it was great because we had photographers that actually were calling us like, hey, let's go it snowed in Salt Lake. Let's go to the hospital. Let's go to the rail gardens. Let's go somewhere. And then we'd have, it wasn't so much a filmer, like Roxy would hire a filmer, but it was really cool to have photographers come out and reach out just from seeing that women are wanting to go into the streets or wanting to hit bigger jumps, go into the backcountry. So it was a good point. It was a good point in our time. Plus, it was opening up on social media. Growing up, it was just like maybe a little sliver of seeing, what was it, Twist or something that like Shannon done, or
Yeah, sure.
like, so having it actually now on a DVD, but you could also see it online, was a huge moment.
Yeah, I think your timing was perfect with the level of riding that you brought to the table, as well as more cameras being focused on women and saying, hey, these people are legitimate and we need to actually capture this on film. And there were a number of female-run production companies that came out right around that same era too. And,
Yeah, yep.
How did you transition, or was it a transition from filming to competition, or were you doing it all at the same time?
Yeah, it was both for quite a while. 2008 was when the crash happened, and it's crazy. I wasn't affected by it, which was really cool. But I do remember when I was negotiating contracts, I'm like, okay, I'm having, well, part of it was like, okay, I get paid this amount for a full page, half page, whatever. So easy, because at that time, I feel like it was go out with a photographer and they publish you. So I kind of cashed in on that, which sounds ridiculous, but I was like, why not? It's so easy. I mean, if I go out with whoever and I go hit this rail, which is no different than a park rail. That's how I envision street rails. I'm like, it's like a park rail. Who cares? There's some grass on the side. Like, what happens? Like, there's some stairs right there. It's fine. And so I really used that to, I guess, get into the magazines. I had 10 to 12, I don't know, every year I had a lot of things published. And, but I kept going to the contest because it was kind of like a requirement. I was like, okay, we're getting paid this amount, and you have this guy over here that maybe gets a video part, nobody knows who he is, and he's getting 5 times the amount. Like, those were some of the harder, and they're like, well, someone could shit on the sign Roxy and they'll still buy it, and da-da-da, so we have to, like, I don't know, it was such a bullshit, but it was fine because I like kind of figured out what I could do at that time to just cash in on the extra dollars. I don't ride well under pressure, so I never did well in contests, but I knew I could get published.
So what's the pressure difference? I mean, I would imagine when you've got people with a video set up, lights maybe at night or whatever for a street
more intimate
spot.
It's just me and the photographer, maybe another. I actually wouldn't, when I first started, I wouldn't even go with anybody because I didn't like the mindset that women had at that time of like, well, what if I hit that rock over there? Or what if this happens?
Put a bad thought in your mind.
And so, yeah, I would like, if a guy wanted to come, I would session it with them. But if they didn't, fine, I'll just session it by myself. And And I think that was just, I got as many tries as I wanted to. You know, it was my environment. I set things up the way I wanted it. And there was just no pressure.
When it sounds like, you know, you're talking as if you cashed in on this and that and the photo shoot on your own or whatever, but I'm also sensing that there was an underlying love of riding that actually drove you.
Well, there's like a sense of like, I'm going to prove you too, you know, like what shots can I get this year? What video part can I put together? And who am I proving? I guess it was like, you know, at the end of the day, summer comes and that's when you're loving the moment. There's like the trade show, what was it, ASR that happened back in the day?
Sure.
And I remember the one year they had the Monster like rented this boat down in San Diego, and it was just for I think Runway did it. I don't know, those were like the glorious moments. You gotta just sit and enjoy all your hard work. But yeah, I was obsessed. I mean, I loved snowboarding, of course. It was just, but I also had like a sense of perfection, which was probably a little OCD, but if I had like a finger touch the ground, I'm like, oh my gosh, we have to do that again. I don't know. I went a little extreme with it.
But I think that's really cool in a way, because my feeling at my age is anyone who's young who wants to do something in their life, they can just go do it and they can apply themselves. And what I see in a lot of people at all different age groups is a sense of defeatism in a way, where they feel like whatever it is that's in front of them is too hard, or somebody else did it before me. And I think that the way you're talking is really inspirational, because all you really got to do is show up. That's more than half of the job. And once you show up, then you're pretty much going to do what you're supposed to do, whether that's work a computer or hit rails like you.
Yeah, it's you can look at it and feel defeated, or you can look at it and be like, this is me and this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it the way I want to do it, and that's what makes you exactly unique in what you want to do.
So did you transition out of the industry on your own, or was it being forced out by companies or lack of sponsorship?
No, I'd never lacked the sponsorship. The year before I left, it was interesting, you know, and I always read like females as they age, they become better, and I really was like, man, I'm really good. I was doing stuff that I probably 5 years early wish I could do. And I was at Park City, and I had filmed a really good, just quick park segment. It was like preseason. And I was really excited. There was a Roxy shoot in Austria coming up that I was excited to do. And then Sarah Burke came that day to Park City, like one of the last days I was filming. And I said, oh my gosh, Sarah. And she's like, hey, come meet me down, because I was on the chairlift and I saw her at the half pipe. And I was coming down and I was like, why is there care flight? What's happening? And they're just like, she was cardiac arrest. And so that spun me. It spun me hard. And so I spent the next week in the hospital with just a few of us. Not knowing, you know, the first few days were just like, you know, what do we do? Do we let her go? Do we keep her? But I held that on really hard. I went to X Games merely just to ride down the pipe. And then I flew out to Austria, and I hadn't snowboarded. That was the first time I got back on my snowboard since that day. And I was riding a jump that morning, felt all right, warmed up a little bit. I went to do a frontside 5, and I went so far. It was like I'd hit it a few times. It felt great. Like I was spinning backside. I did frontside, and all of a sudden I was like in the air, and I was like, I don't know. It's like that night. Have you ever had that nightmare where you're just in the air and you're dropping?
Oh,
And
yeah.
you wake up out of it?
Sure.
Yeah, I wasn't waking up out of this. And I just said, okay, whatever you do, land on the tail of your board so that you can like get some absorption. And I was out, and that was it. And I came to, ambulance was there. But it, you know, while I was out, I remember like being like, Sarah's okay. It was interesting. I remember like having this weird like thought with Sarah. And I was in the hospital for 4 days in Austria. It was the worst experience of my life. And then, well, it doesn't help that they didn't speak English.
Sure.
I was stuck in Europe for 6 weeks. And those 6 weeks sucked up my travel budget. And Roxy thought I was done. And I told Amber, because we were very good friends, I'm like, oh no. Nope, it's on my dime. Like, I'm sorry, I've been with Roxy for so long. You know, I want to be done in the aspect that I'm like sick of the politics and the bullshit, but I want to end on my note. And she let me do that. She graced me that with only, I mean, you know, I only had 5, they totally cut my pay, not my pay, they cut my pay, which was great, but my travel budget. I was at $5,000 when I used to be kind of unlimited. So on $5,000, I was like, don't know what I'm going to do with this, but I do have a video I can show of the last year. I ended up going to Alaska a little bit for rails. You can't do backcountry. It's way too expensive. But I ended on my note. I didn't get injured. I ended strong. Transworld was going to do an interview with me. King Snow was going to do an interview. It was a powerful year. And then as soon as everyone caught wind that I was done, none of the interviews happened, which is fine. I have my photos from that year, and to this day, it was like one of the most gratifying. In fact, I got married that fall, and Nate, his job was here. And I was like, I'll meet you there when I'm done with my season. I stayed in Utah. So for 11 months, he came out here in September, and I didn't come out until June. So that whole season, it was just like, I needed that for myself, because that's not how I was going to end my career.
Well, and that to me is a real tip of the hat to Amber Stackhouse. She is a great person.
She's
I
awesome.
don't know her super well, but I had a little bit of some interaction with her, and I always thought she was very professional and really friendly and really cool and a great rider in her own right. And that sounds like something that's totally different than the way a lot of the guys end their careers. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's why we need more women on the show. We need more women in snowboarding. I really feel like that's just a classy touch to allow you to exit the way you wanted to.
It was, I mean, so the benefit in this situation with being Roxy, and then, you know, you always have that one girl on every team, but Amber and I were friends, and it was, you know, having a sponsor listen to you as an athlete, like, hey, you've been with us for this long, and yeah, you know, go do your year. And it was great. I did feel fortunate at the time. I feel like there's some males, especially the top ones, that have had a career for a long time. But when you look at the recycling of athletes, the women tend to stick around a little bit longer, being the token girl for that team. But I also feel like maybe take care of ourselves a little bit better or whatnot. But, you know, and women, holy crap, they have, like, it's so rad to watch them right now. We've progressed, but it's like, the men progress so fast that, like, they're short-lived almost, you know? It's like,
oh yeah.
Gas tank's gone.
Bring them in, push them out. Bring them in, push them out. That's.
And the women just are able to take those techniques or tactics and see, and I almost feel like we observe, watch, and apply better. But, you know, we're a little bit behind, but at the same time, you know, it's just, we also, I don't really care if I ever saw a woman do a quadruple. I think it's a little just silly, but
It's figure skating.
maybe I'm old school. But what the women are doing now, I love it. I actually enjoy watching the women more because they have the style now and they have the flow, and it's not like a spin to win. And it's like what guys were when I was doing X Games and stuff. Now the women are at that level.
Yeah,
And it's really fun to watch.
I agree 100%. So what do you do now here in Denver?
So the day I came back, well, I got pregnant really quickly, first try. Have 2 kids. They're awesome, 8 and 5. Just through a series, I'm kind of one of those people that I see something and I kind of go for it. Not necessarily that maybe it's what I want to do, but I just believe in, like, if water's always moving, you're gonna come across something. And that's what happened in this situation. I ended up finding my second passion. It's in nutrition. I'm a FDN practitioner, so that's functional diagnostic nutrition. And I basically work with people who have been told, you're fine, there's nothing to be done, here's all your medication. And so, you hear about ulcerative colitis, GERD, Crohn's, any kind of like autoimmune condition. And I work with primarily those people that just need more help.
Great. And
Yeah.
so has that made you healthier personally?
It's made me a lot more aware. It's interesting. You go through, when I'm going to start running tests on people, they have you do it on yourself. So I do like a stool test to look at pathogens in your gut, and then I'll do a urine test, saliva test, blood test. But all these different tests are just to see your hormones and cortisol levels and all these different things. Especially when somebody's really sick, though, it's so cool to watch these different tests and their symptoms line up and help them feel good again. Because if you're feeling like crap at 30, 40, 50, you don't want to live much longer. Like, it's awful. But it's something that it's my second passion. Like, I remember my first class, it was 2018. I was sitting in my room. I went to my first seminar and I walked out and I'm like, I'm alive! Like, this is what I want to do. And I couldn't believe it hit me like that. It just was, holy crap, because I went from spinning in the air. I remember my last frontside 540. I was just holding on and it felt like just, stopped in the moment. I was like, you can't replace floating in the air with anything. How am I ever going to replace this? I'm screwed. Whatever, let's go on with life. Like, I just had to move on. But it doesn't necessarily need to be. I will always remember that moment because I told myself, it's like end of the day, I'm like, okay, this, last hit, which you probably shouldn't tell yourself, but I did. And when I came out of that bedroom the day with that seminar, it was a different feeling of floating. It just was like, this is what I want to do. Like, in snowboarding, I wanted to be a really good example for women and help them like push through these barriers. And now with nutrition, I want to help people push through the barriers of what just medicine's doing. That there's so much more to be shown and taught.
Yeah, I can relate. My dad's a retired physician, so I was around all this medical stuff my whole life, and it's interesting to see how other people gain their passions in things like medicine or things that aren't adrenaline sports like we've grown up on.
It's a big transition, but it's really gratifying.
So I have my yearbook from freshman year at North Tahoe High School, and I'm just wondering, there's a few people in my yearbook, and I'm just wondering if you have any similar kind of personality. So Tom Burt is in my yearbook.
No way.
Terry Kidwell is in my yearbook. Alan Arnbrister, who would have been better than Terry Kidwell if he didn't get into crack cocaine. But I'm just wondering if you have an Incline High School yearbook that has snowboard stars in it.
I mean, there's Joel Mahaffey is.
He's a reputable name.
Well, I don't know how reputable he is now.
Well, I mean,
15, 16, he was an all-star.
that's the X in you.
He like doesn't even have teeth left in his face. Like he just doesn't take care of himself.
Sounds like he needs your services.
No, he asked me for money, and I was like, no, sorry, go drink it away somewhere else. Let's see, Ben Rice maybe for a hot second.
I know Ben Rice.
These are the younger ones. I'm thinking older.
Well, that's okay. We don't need
Yeah.
to talk about our old high school.
I know,
mean,
like,
it's just proof
people
right there.
who-
North Tahoe rules. over
Yeah,
Incline,
North Tahoe got
period.
it. Where did Damian Sanders come from, though?
Oh, he's from South Shore. Those guys are a whole different ball.
What about
game.
Noah Slasic? Where was
He's
he?
from down in the Bay Area in Grass Valley.
Grass
area.
Valley. Okay.
Yeah.
Sean Palmer
Palmer's South Shore also.
and Sean. What was the other Sean? Farmer. Thank you.
Farmer's from Missouri. Don't let him
Oh.
fool you.
He's a Flatlander.
He's a flatlander.
And Chris Roach.
Roach
Was
is from
he
Grass
Valley?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So one question that I had for you, you also rode for Rockstar, didn't you? Mm-hmm. So in the field that you're in now, would that
And
be
they party,
somewhat
just
of
so
a
you know.
conflict?
Yeah.
I mean, were you selective with the energy drink sponsors? I mean, I have a whole philosophy about energy drink companies.
It was good money.
It was good money.
Mm-hmm.
So it was such good money that it maybe possibly convinced you that you didn't really care about your board sponsors much anymore?
No, it's still, Roxy still was bigger. No, I cared about my board sponsor probably the most, for sure.
So
The
that's
biggest paycheck.
great. I mean, I asked that question because it's almost like an integrity-based question, and I feel like
Yeah.
energy drinks in general have really ruined action sports in a way, and it's not necessarily the health of the energy drinks. Actually, Rockstar was founded by Michael Savage's son, and I always heard that Michael Savage guy. I don't know if you know who he is. He's a super weirdo right-wing radio talk show guy, and he
never
would
heard
always
his name.
brag about his son starting this energy drink company and that it was the healthiest one out there.
Oh,
Which,
geez.
sorry, it's total bullshit.
I think they did try to show the B vitamins and stuff, but
Yeah, but you know, my feeling is that energy drink companies started throwing all the money at the riders,
Mm-hmm.
and they were asking for the helmet space, and you largely didn't really wear a helmet, so
I
that's
didn't
maybe one
until
of
I
the
had my
things.
accident. Actually, I had a mouth guard and a helmet on,
Oh.
and I started wearing it when I was. But yes,
But, you know,
primarily
they-
majority. I
They
did
would
not.
take the helmet space,
They
and
did.
that really pissed off Burton and Giro and any company that made
Yeah.
helmets. But I think that from the rider's perspective, they wanted that energy drink money because it was, you know,
Good money. Mm-hmm.
up to 6 figures or more, whatever. And I think that made the rider kind of forget about everybody else. Hey, I've got this sponsor, and they're paying at least as much as Burton, and Burton's a head-to-toe deal, so what the heck? I'll just go with this energy drink company, and then at
I
the
guess
same,
I did see that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel
I
like,
didn't see it with me personally, but I saw it with other athletes. Yeah.
So you were one of the few that really enjoyed an energy drink sponsor as well as maintained
It was additional
an
income, yeah.
association. Like that sounds to me like for your career that was a real trifecta in a way, or I don't know if it's
Yeah.
where
Well,
the-
I mean, you know, between Vans, Roxy, and Rockstar, it was all pretty sweet for a couple years.
were you making over 100,000 a year? $500,000?
Yeah, I wish. No, I wasn't there. No.
But hey, anybody who can make 6 figures a year, even
Mm-hmm.
in today's economy, is great money.
Well, yeah. And when I was leaving the industry, I just, you know, what I remember, the contracts were solely based on how many likes you had on maybe a post, or it was interesting because they really wanted me to get into Twitter, and I was like, I don't want to write crap, but I will take photos on Instagram. And I remember Roxy was like, Instagram's not going to go anywhere. Like, it's not a big deal. And I was like,
It's a fad. It's going away.
it's going to go away. And I'm like,
the
well,
whole internet.
I like photos, and that's where I'm going to put my energy. I'm not going to do Twitter. And to this day, I've never done Twitter. To this day, I still do Instagram. In fact, I run my business through Instagram and Facebook and all that. But I just felt bad for the people coming in. The contracts were not the same. They didn't have the same anything.
Yeah, it's a completely
travel budget
different
and
world, yeah.
incentives, and oh my gosh, I was like, I had it good.
So what exactly is the name of the business? Is it your business that you're?
It is. It's my business. It's 360 Vital Health, and 360vitalhealth.com. We have a Facebook group. It's actually not necessarily called that. Our Facebook group, which is weird. Our page is called that. I have a business mentor, and so with that, I have actually somebody working for me in the Facebook world, so I'm not on there a ton. And then I have a VA, a virtual assistant, that does all my PDFs and posts, and I don't know. It's pretty crazy, this internet world, but I
understand.
virtual
It's the same in
assistants
real
and
estate.
employees.
It's crazy.
Yep. I have a coach in Utah. I have a coach in Missouri. So it's great. It doesn't matter where anybody's at. If they're good, they're good, and that's.
Well, and you can focus on what you need to focus on instead of putting your name out on social media.
Yes, I get a focus. Yes, I love it. I'm actually running a 12-month mentorship twice a year, so 2 cohorts, coaching coaches through gut and hormone health. And so I get to concentrate on that stuff. And the one program that I do is a detox program. And then I have very little. I have 12 clients, but the rest, if they need one-on-one coaching, they go to my other coaches.
That's great. And
Yeah.
what about your kids? Do they snowboard yet?
Going from a 5-minute drive to you wish it's a 45-minute drive, it's changed. We're going to go to Steamboat next week, but that'll be the first time they ride this year. It's just the traffic it's not the same as Utah or Tahoe.
And what do you do when you snowboard? Do you just ride the lifts and go up and down, or are you looking
No, that's still boring to me. So I went to Loveland a couple weeks ago. I went with Nate and all his shop kids. And I feel like I'm 10 again. I'm just like, let's hit all these side hits, and we're just I don't know. It's weird that just turns on, and age isn't even a thing, and we're all just following each other off tree hits and through the trees. And Nate randomly commented, he's like, dude, you shred really hard. And I was just like, what do you mean? I haven't ridden in 2 years. What are you talking about? Or something like that. He's like, I just forget. I don't know.
But once you've got it, you've got it.
Yeah,
and you're not going to lose it unless you, for me, I'm hurt all the time. And
You are?
Well, I've had 5 knee surgeries, and I've had a
shoot.
disc taken out of my neck. And
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, I'm beat up.
Yeah. I do. I guess through the nutrition and fitness industry, I get out there and I feel so good.
That's great.
It's fun. I don't go out a ton. I wish I could. Again though, I get up there and I'm just like, this is so good. I need to get up here more. But then I get back into my office and I'm just so obsessed with all of my education and applying, and it's been really cool.
Well, I think it's great because it shows almost a conscious disconnect where you can say, this was my identity, or this is who I was for so long, and that was great, and I can still be that person when I want to be, but I'm also really happy and excited and energetic about what I'm doing now.
And I feel the same way with what I'm doing, and I think it's really nice to see.
Yeah, it is really cool. I see some friends that just can't leave the industry because I feel like it is their identity and they don't know how to, I'm like, the world is so big, but we end up sometimes trapping ourselves, which is finding like that this is the only way we can see ourselves living a certain way. Like it's just, it's sad. And I'll just leave it at that. But finding like a second passion, you know, I feel there's so many people that can't even find one passion. So I found one passion, but to find two, and I think it just says a lot. I told my mom it's like a double-edged sword. It's like I'm so driven that my time and everything is just like I've had to definitely set hard boundaries, you know, and I don't want to like have it affect my kids, but I'm also so driven that it just keeps me going, and that I feel like because of that I found this, you know, other thing in my life. But I do hope for anyone who watches this, like snowboarding's such a rad journey, but just when it's time, you know, there's so much more out there.
Well, and it sounds like you're not going to quit anytime soon. It's just less frequent.
It's less frequent, yeah. I wish I could go more. If I was in Utah, I guaranteed I'd go up once a week. It's so much easier.
That long 25-minute drive.
Yeah, right? I thought that was so long, especially coming from Tahoe. I'm like, what, 5 minutes? 25, now 50, whatever. You know, and forget the weekends here. That's just ridiculous. But it's awesome. Like I don't know. There's a lot.
It's a nice city, and there's great restaurants and a lot to do here, but it's not quite the mountain community that you and I are used to.
No, and people move here for the mountains, and I'm like, I mean, what do you go up? Like, how often do you go up? But I'm excited, you know, to go to Steamboat next week. It'll be fun, but for us, it's like I need to go up there for a couple days so we can have a few days back to back. Adam Kissel, who worked at Mount Hood, went and worked at Copper for a few years, and he was just every year he's like, all right, here's your pass, and I was just like, this is awesome. He left this summer, but I had a pass to Copper all the way up through last year, and the park was always where I ended up. I'm just like this little kid. It never, I don't know, like you said, I mean, once you know it, you know it.
Yeah, once you're hooked, and once you know it, you know it. And it's hard to give it up. I mean, for me, again, all the injuries I've had have just slowed me down. My mind still thinks I was never that good. That's why I got injured so much, because I crashed at everything. But
or you just sent it all the time.
Yeah, I was not afraid to go for it and try, but I usually failed in my trying. But, you know, the mind says one thing and the body says another thing.
For sure.
And it's great that you can still get out there and rip as hard as you do. I'm sure you're just as good as you always have been.
No, I mean, there's certain things I just don't do anymore, but it's with anything. I remember I got into CrossFit and I was so competitive, but my body wouldn't let me do what I wanted to do. It was a hard pill to swallow, but at the same time, that was kind of more too where I'm like, there's got to be more than fitness. And then I found that my journey in through nutrition, because there is more. There's always more. It's just, you know, is your mind open enough to see what else is past that?
Sure. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to come and visit us. And
super fun.
I will give you a parting gift. I don't know if you have a DVD player. But
I don't have a DVD player.
Go find one, because it's the Miserable Champion. If you ever saw the Palmer documentary, I'm trying to get rid of the DVDs. I have about 200 of them.
Oh, okay. I actually am not sure if I ever saw this.
All right.
I know I have like Standard when I did a video with them, and then Park City, they're all on DVDs though. I'm like, well, I'm not going to throw these away. But one day I'm going to have to figure out how to...
I bet you can get a free DVD player off of Craigslist.
Put them in the cloud, probably. Seriously.
Well,
No, this
again,
is
thank
great.
you very much. I really appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank
and
you.
a great conversation, and I wish you all the best with your company. And if there's anything we can do or I can do, let me know.
Yeah, no, there's nothing anyone can do. I'm grateful for being here, but I would say I see people daily that are so frustrated with headaches or their kids feeling miserable, and it's so interesting just how powerful food is, like just knowing a lot of the behaviors and depression come from that. But so yeah, if you have anybody that, is struggling, I'm always happy to talk to somebody.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, as we get more guests on the show and they tell us about their problems.
They're like, right now I have this weird skin disease. Just kidding. I'm sure no one's going to say that, but yeah.
Well, they might. You never know. And we'll
Maybe.
definitely refer them to you.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Well, have a great rest of your evening. And
Yeah, warm
thanks
up,
for-
everybody.
Yeah.
Sunday,
in
it's
here.
going to be nice and sunnier, longer.
All right. Well, thank you. And
Thank you.
talk to you soon.
Okay.
All right, Corey. Wow. Number 3 in the can. That's amazing. What do you think?
I can't believe we're on our 3rd episode already. That's a monumental occasion.
3rd time's a charm for editing, sound, and everything else, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly.
We're technical nerds that don't know anything about this stuff.
We've been going to YouTube University. Highly recommended.
You have, not me. I just act like I know what I'm doing, and I
Oh,
know
and then I
that
teach you?
don't. Yeah, then you teach me, exactly. I screw it up, and then you come and correct it, and we still have a long way to go. But anyway, I really, really think that was a great show. Erin Comstock, I mean, what can you say? She is a legend. I'm so psyched to get more women on the show, as always, and especially someone who really pushed the envelope and set some trends, and it's great to see that what she's doing these days too.
Yeah.
And then Tim Greene, I mean, that guy, I've known him since he was a teenager, and he is an industry veteran on the retail level, as well as some stuff behind the scenes. He's been in the industry for such a long time, and now he pretty much, he's recovering from his Achilles tendon surgery, but he's also a guy that just gets so much pleasure from going out in the backcountry on his split board, and he really does such a great job helping people out. I mean, I bought bindings from him for that split board right there, that Winter Stick. Thanks again to Winter Stick. But Tim
I'm
knows
definitely
his stuff.
looking forward
And
to talking to him.
If you ever need help with any equipment finding, this guy, as you saw, he really knows his stuff. So we want to close this show out by thanking all of our guests. Thanks to Dan again for the great space and for, bringing this show together. And thank you, Corey. You're an excellent co-host, cohort, co-whatever it is, co-rider.
Yeah.
Even though I couldn't ride that one day we went, but we'll go
Oh,
again.
man. Yeah, we'll ride more. Might even do an episode from up there.
That would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't always have to be in the studio. It's kind of a theme, I think. But I think it would be great to do something out on the mountain as well. Next week, I'll be out in Tahoe for the Legends event. So we will most likely have some kind of an episode, whether it's a whole bunch of old school people and legends out there in Tahoe, or a bunch of average snowboarders. Like, who knows what we'll do, but maybe we'll just throw a curveball at the whole thing.
Sounds good.
All right, and that's it for episode 3. Thanks for watching. Tune in to our YouTube channel and subscribe. And we're also on Instagram at The Snowboard Show. Thanks, and have a great evening.